and ask your questions. We'll probably take maybe 2 or 3 first, and then have the minister respond, and then we'll have another 2 or 3, and we'll do it in that order. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carlos Apowit. I am a Barbadian, so I'm just going to get that out of the way right now. I live and work in Jamaica. I am in the trade promotion industry. I work at Jampro. And my question, Minister Phillips, you did not touch on this at all, so I would like to bring it up. Currency depreciation is ghastly. And interest rates is quite, it's quite awesome. But the rate at which the dollar slides is extremely scary for anyone who actually is looking to get into business, because how exactly can I make long-term projections unless, of course, I'm actually going to forecast that the dollar is going to be 125 to 1 next year, March. So I just want you to speak on that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ministers. I'm Adrian Watson from Junior Chamber International, the Kingston chapter. My questions are, where did we start building up this debt, and where's the management process from then till now? My second question is, in light of the capitalist culture that we now have globally, re-globalization, how do you quantify the damage that economics that we are now practicing is impacting on the environment? And could you speak to a little bit on social entrepreneurship, which speaks to the tenets of the environment, finance, and the social well-being of our nation?
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Raymore. I work in communications for a food company. So my question falls back. No, I didn't wear a logo for a reason. I'm trying to remain employed. So I noted your commentary on loan rates and venture capital legislation. I also note our commendable improvement on the ease of doing business reports. But as you said, not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. For someone like me that is working on a fixed income and traveling along a fixed income path, I'm effectively financially handicapped by the effective tax rate that I pay. I lose some 40%, 30 out to 40% of my paycheck monthly. And I am quite happy working with the skill set I am blessed with. I am not looking towards starting a business and have the potential for suddenly striking gold and doing well, or even better, as I get promoted, etc. But my income path is fixed. What are we doing about lowering the effective tax rate that we feel as a PAYE? We are shouldering the burden of the rest of the country. Most persons don't file their income tax returns if they are privately employed or self-employed. You have even doctors and lawyers where the number of persons registered as doctors is nowhere near the amount of doctors paying their income tax. There's low-hanging fruit like that we're not going after. And I think that needs to be fixed. I know that personally. I studied abroad. I have US-denominated student loans. When I moved back to Jamaica, the dollar was 87. We all know what the dollar is now. My paycheck has not gone up that much in the 3 or 4 years I've been home. And again, how do we keep young persons like myself in the island with this tax rate?
All right, let me take the first question on the currency depreciation. There is no doubt that we had an overvalued currency, simply measured by the amount of money that you are earning as a country from overseas and the amount that you are spending. Now, if you are spending more than you are earning, then there are only a limited number of ways that you can compensate. You can borrow to make up the difference, or you can, which obviously is what got you into the situation in the first instance, that you are uncompetitive, your businesses are uncompetitive, they're not earning. Or you can ration by administrative means to say we will not import this, we will not import that, and we're going to ban goods. That has a further consequence of either you generate smuggling, bandulism of other sorts, or you create all kinds of difficulties because who is going to pick what you're going to ban and what you're going to let in? Or you allow the price of currency to adjust so that you bring supply and demand more in balance. The current account deficit, what they call the balance of payments, is the mechanism that perhaps most sharply captures this difference between what you are spending and what you are earning from overseas. The deficit on our current account in 2013 was 13% of GDP. This past year, financial year ending March 31st, the deficit on current account was 5.9%, compensated for by what inflows on the foreign direct investment and other inflows on the capital account. So, China devalued in one day more than we have devalued for the whole of the current financial year. Our currency values this past month, that is to say, Chinese devaluation of the yuan. We have the sharp movement of the currency has leveled off, and we expect it to remain essentially in balance, except to compensate for such differences between our inflation rate and that of your main trading partners. So that rate of depreciation that we have had will slow, has slowed and will slow. Not expecting any basic adjustment in this further. Others in the region, including Barbados, have decided that they will not adjust their currency. They have to make other adjustments. They're laying off sizable portion of their civil service and make other adjustments. But you have to adjust. Any economy, especially any small economy, has to adjust. It's in some way to bring its balance of payments into some kind of equilibrium. That's just the reality. And currency depreciation was part of the mechanism. But on the other side, look at what it has made possible. When Red Stripe is now able to substitute locally grown cassava for imported carbohydrate base, what it means is that because of the change in the value of the currency, painful though it has been on the consumption side, it has put into earning Jamaican farmers as against the farmers producing the imported barley that we were using. When our animal feed producers can now produce local sorghum and corn instead of importing it from Iowa, what it means is that you're putting a Jamaican farmer to work instead of a farmer in Iowa or elsewhere. That's what it's doing. It's changing the balance. Everything that has been said here has addressed, and I understand it, legitimate concern, the consumption side of the equation. The truth is, what has happened is that we have focused on the consumption side of our equation for so long that we have and ignored the production side of our equation, that we are borrowing money to put everybody else's productive enterprise to work until we have just simply reached the limit of that possibility. So yes, the adjustment has been painful, but you know, it's like when you borrow too much as an individual, and I hope none of you ever have to confront that, borrowing too much. I'm not opposed to borrowing. I'm opposed to borrowing too much, because that means that you spend the rest of your life and all your energy paying off, because the interest rate is accumulating quicker than your capacity to earn to pay it off. And then the next thing that happens is that they come and take the car, and then they come and take the house, and then the wife goes, and then the children leave you, and all of things happens. That's what happens. And it happens yet in a different form to countries as well. Because all that we are complaining about the IMF and other things, and we might disagree with them, but those things happen to you when you don't run your own affairs properly. And independence means running your own affairs properly, and including taking difficult decisions, such as if you borrow too much in the household, you have to decide, look here, cutting out the movie, or cutting out the party, we're going to sell the bigger car, and we're going to buy a second-hand one, and we're going to get our affairs in order, and then wheel and come again and move forward in life. That is what we have to do as a country. If we don't do it, other people will come and run our country for us. Plain and simple. Not an easy story. It's not pretty, and we don't need to pretty it up. That's the reality of what has happened to us. And I want to connect it to the second question. When did this build-up start? As I said, the first decade of independence, we were coming off the boom of the discovery of bauxite and aluminum here. Bauxite, which makes aluminum, and the emergence of the tourism industry, etc. After that, what happened? Oil price shock, 1973. Price of oil quadrupled overnight, formation of OPEC. We continued to consume at basically the same level. We made no adjustments. We borrowed to do it. And then that was the start, one might say. And at each point, there were policy errors at various points in this, but I would date that to around the end of the last Alpat bauxite alumina plant was constructed, started around 1970. Once that wave went and the world economy moved into turbulence in the mid-70s, and we had our own turbulence politically here, we failed to adjust, and we continued to think that we could borrow our way out of the adjustment, out of the necessity to make adjustments. And then we can have a discussion about the history, but it's probably another time and another place, but that's the timing. Damage to the environment. Yes, I think what we have to recognize ultimately, and there are important trade-offs that have to be made, but that particularly for a small island country with a very fragile ecology, very fragile environment, where we are facing and where a lot of our economy is tourism focused. We have the need to essentially protect our environment. But I tell you this, we have to find these balances. There are these big debates going on in the United States and elsewhere. To my mind, we don't need to be reckless, you know, with respect to the use of fossil fuels, etc. But the greatest destroyer of our environment is just having too many poor people without adequate places to live, without adequate places and facilities to dispose of our refuse. And poverty is perhaps the greatest impediment to a healthy environment in our immediate circumstance. We need to do more, but if somebody says to me, would using some coal to generate, I mean, hypothetically, using some coal to generate electricity, should we be the only ones not doing it? I don't think we are at our level of consumption. It is going to make a massive contribution to global warming. And yet many of the other countries saying don't use any more fossil fuels are happily going ahead using theirs because they say they don't want to incur the effects of poverty and the knock-on effects on their environment. But yes, the challenge of the environment is a global challenge, and we need to confront it. On the question of tax rates and tax compliance, I agree. Our basic policy is to lower the rate, broaden the base. It's lost in the mix, maybe, but we have raised the tax-free portion of personal income twice over the past 3 years. That's what it means when you're raising the threshold in income tax. While your tax rate remains at 25%, the portion that is tax-free has gone up each year. As we meet our obligations, we would like to reduce those rates even further and raise the threshold. On the compliance side, a lot of legislation has been passed and now beginning to come into effect, including, most significantly, the access to third-party information from taxpayers, which will allow the tax authorities to identify expenditures and target more effectively the persons who are cheating on their taxes. Interestingly though, since you say you know the doctors who are not paying, etc., we would love to get all the evidence. No, and evidence don't mean knowing that this is so. Evidence meaning somebody willing to come in and say, I went to so-and-so and he told me to bring only cash, and I'm prepared to stand up in court and say this. No, I'm just saying, it cut both sides. We can all want it, and we do, and we are working towards these things. But the responsibility ultimately belongs to all of us. You know? Many people say, I see a man down the road break into a house. I'm saying, you will stand up and give evidence? I say, no. Then it won't stop it as quickly as it could if you were going to stand up. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. But then no building there's no nation where the task of nation building was easy.
Thank you. We now take the second series of questions.
Pleasant good night, ministers. My name is Andre Philippe Blackwood. I am the current president. All right, good. I'm the current president for the Kingston and St. Andrew Youth Council. I have a number of questions.
Can we just take one so that we can give persons another a chance to ask as well, Andre?
All right, good.
Thank you.
It's one, but it's a two-part, sorry. I'll compromise on that way. All right, so due to what the Minister, Peter Phillips, has said, in terms of enabling environments, I'm particularly concerned that Kingston and St. Andrew does not have a youth information center that might be able to be utilized to get young people within a space to share ideas, among other things. And this is something that I'm very, very, very passionate about to have. I hope that you guys will look deeply into getting loans for that. As well as in 2013, when I was elected, youth clubs were offered a subvention. They were told that they would be offered a subvention of approximately $25,000. Dr. Phillips, I believe this is now at your ministry. Trust me, we really need that little money, and I hope that you're looking to funding us for some more money. Thank you.
We'll take the young lady on this side and then, yes, ma'am.
Good night. My name is Sister Clarion, and I represent a New Jamaica. I have two questions for either the ministers. The minimum wage. I think to be paying a Jamaican $5,500, and you have young people here working, and they just get a little over maybe 7,000 for the week. They get below? When you look at where the dollar was in 2010 when we signed the agreement, it was 80 to 1, it's at 120. And we know that the minimum wage has not really moved anywhere near to keep up with just the exchange rate. What it means is, for example, when you take Jamaicans shopping downtown with the Chinese, the wholesaler will raise his price every week because he's calculating his price based on the US dollars. He doesn't care. But he's paying the worker the same, which means he has a higher inflow of cash every week. So what our government is effectively doing is allowing them to make more money while paying us the same wage. I'll move quickly to the Youth and Culture Minister. Now,
But that was, and I appreciate the statement. Is there a question now?
well, the minister can tell us when we'll have a significant increase in the minimum wage.
That's your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Second question.
The other day, the Heart Trust NTA came out and said that employers are telling them not to send them black-skinned Jamaicans for employment. Yes.
I didn't hear that statement. So
TVJ carried it, and this
was
is
it an
how I know.
editorialized statement? Because you have to be careful when journalists. Yeah.
No, all angles. Dion Jackson Miller.
Did
she
the person
did.
from Heart NTA say it?
She did a program on it.
No, I'm asking you a specific question. Did
Let me
the person on
complete.
Heart NTA say it? Because in the context of what you're saying that someone from Heart made that statement.
That is what she reported, and that was what the program was about. I see you're very out of touch, Minister.
No, that's not it. Forgive me, I don't get a chance to watch all angles. So we can have an organized discussion.
Well,
But the issue that
it
I'm
is
asking you
very-
about. Continue.
it is very commonplace that black-skinned Jamaicans are discriminated against. I'm surprised you don't know that.
Well,
It is very commonplace.
I want to say, I don't know if there is any such thing, then you need to report it to the police,
Absolutely.
because it is something that is not tolerable. And I don't think that there is any, if that were reported to be the case, it would be a national crisis on
Absolutely.
everybody's lips. And if you know of such a place, I urge you,
call
it is
TVJ,
not tolerable
call
in
TVJ
today's
and
Jamaica.
speak with Dion Jackson Miller.
No,
because
you bring that
she-
evidence. You bring
No,
it.
I don't need to bring that evidence.
Don't make the allegation
You are
unless you bring
representing
any
me.
evidence.
I'm not making an allegation.
You don't bring such an allegation in Jamaica now. Don't do it.
I am telling you of a serious development in our country. You don't know of people saying they're on beaches in Jamaica, black-skinned Jamaicans, and they're asked to leave. You don't know of these
Can you ask a
situations?
question, sister? Ask a question that you'd like to ask, because there are
My
several other
question-
persons.
Well, my question would be to you, Minister. What is your stance on racism and these cases? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Hi, good evening. My name is Courtney Rowe, and I am a graduate of the Norman Manley Law School. To the Minister, quickly, you were introduced as warm and fuzzy but tough. And my question is this. Whilst you were giving your introductory speech, you mentioned that the debt to GDP ratio is at 140% in 2012. Now, based on my checks, the World Bank and as well as the Inter-American Finance Corporation and the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, along with the Inter-American Development Bank, reports that at March 2015, which is the ending of the fiscal year 2014, the debt to GDP ratio was actually 140%. Now, Minister, having seen that contrast in your statement along with what is reported internationally, and as a law student myself, I want to know where is the access to this information. Now, Section 6 of the Access to Information Act states that we as Jamaicans, have a right to access, actually it states that we have a right to obtain access to official documents. Now, I made sure to read the entire act, and Section 14 to 23 mention exempted documents, which do not include.
All right,
Let me before you go and read the entire bill, because it's not necessary.
Good.
Let me just say, if you
May I
refer you,
complete my question before I forget
no,
my chain
but
of
you
thought?
asked one, where is this information?
Is this information? Because I checked
And I was
tracking, and it's not there.
No, what you can go, if you go to Parliament or go to the Ministry of Finance website, look at the fiscal responsibility framework laid in the Parliament in March of this year. It would show you that what, in fact, the debt to GDP outturn was.
Which is
what,
why I asked you to allow me to finish my question, because you would have saved your breath. Now, my problem is, many times,
I think ladies and gentlemen, I think there can be a level of respect.
and I do
There's
agree.
no need.
And I do agree. I'm not being rude.
Okay.
I'm being very forward.
I am just saying, because I could have a son your age.
I agree. I'm not being rude, but I'm being very forward. Now,
Okay.
The minister spoke about being very straightforward, so I'm being forward. Now, many times.
Remember, there are other persons to ask questions as
I'm
well.
going to wrap up. But many times we are told at forums like this one about things that are being done. However, we have no access to that information. After the forum today, we'll leave and we'll go and we'll check, but there's no actual facts to provide or support what is being said.
That's the question. You
What
want to
is
know
your question?
where to
What
find.
is the question? I told you, the fiscal responsibility framework is a document, public document, laid in the parliament, the budget debate. It is there. If you don't have it on your little device, you can go to Garden House tomorrow. Get the document, you will see it. And the recent debt buyback with the Petrocarib debt reduced that number by 10%. So those two documents, I know that there is a deep cynicism that affects too much of the country and a civic and political culture that seems to believe that the division, skepticism, rudeness is the stuff of modern life. I don't share that view. You are free to share it if you want. But, we don't need to. These documents are not provided by me. Our civil servants are honorable people, honorable Jamaicans. They prepare their documents without interference from anyone. There's a host of agencies. We don't need to demean, decry, divide ourselves simply to make a point of whatever sort or the other. We don't need to do it.
Thank you for answering my question, Minister.
All right, we'll answer those three first, and then we'll come to Minister Phillips.
Let me take the. You will deal with the.
I can easily
youth
say that we
information
have
matter.
opened 2 new youth information centers, and there is a subvention. We've increased it by 100% over the last fiscal year for youth clubs. I will make representation to the Minister of Finance for the next financial year to see if we can get even further increases for youth clubs. As it relates to the Kingston Youth Information Center, I will also make representation. You know the reason why that one had to be closed, because of the asbestos in the pipes. And we could not keep that center open because of the health hazards that we found out were existing. And so bear with us a little bit. You have a direct link to me, so you really don't have that problem. As it relates to racism, I decry, denounce, abhor, and do not support racism in any shape or form, whether in this country or any other country. I am a woman that is made up of many races, and at the end of the day, I support all colors, creeds, and classes. And no matter where you come from, if you are a Jamaican or a human being, I respect you at all times, and I support you. Thank you.
Minister, I just wanted to say
No,
that.
no, there's one more question.
No.
No, it's not a question.
No, you had your chance. Can we go on to the other persons we're answering? Thank you.
The question I want to add on that point about racism. I don't believe there is a single Jamaican of goodwill that would tolerate racism in any shape or form in this country. It is the one issue on which this entire country united. It is why we in Jamaica can feel proud of the fact that even before anyone else in the world, even before we were independent, Jamaica, both leading political parties took a stand against apartheid and cut off trading relations with South Africa, the apartheid regime in the 1950s. It wasn't a issue. It is why a whole generation coming out of 1968 and this upheaval of the 60s went through and transformed the tourism sector in Jamaica at that time, which was closed and where employment in financial institutions in colonial times was restricted. If there is one thing that this country, any political authority drawn from whatever political persuasion will never compromise on, it is the practice of racism in our country. And if anyone sees it rear its ugly head in this country, then this is one thing, and I am sure everyone would unite in the parliament, outside, and do all we can. It is abhorrent, and it is abhorrent to make the allegation that there is any political authority in the country that would ever accommodate it. Now, minimum wage. The minimum wage has been adjusted twice in the past 2 years, upwards. Again, the mechanism whereby the minimum wage is assessed is a mechanism that involves public hearings and involves an assessment of the effect on businesses, and an assessment of the relative productivity and the impact on businesses of setting a minimum wage. To make the point about our consumption, as in the case of all the other adjustments that have been made, adjustments have been made. But it is as if I was going for a job and a man says, how much do you expect to get paid? And I start to explain all the things I would like to buy. That is not the way that wages get assessed. Not here, not in another country, nowhere in the world do wages get assessed that way. The point should also be made that we are going through an adjustment. In the country, we are going through an adjustment. It has involved tremendous sacrifice. It's not a secret that it has involved hardship, but the hardship is caused by the fact that we are not producing enough to sell to the world to allow us to meet our consumption levels that we all desire, which is why we are going through an adjustment. So it's like in the middle of a sacrificial effort and to say, well, I am being called upon to make a sacrifice. It is self-evident that this is what is happening. You know, and what I would hope, there are real issues to be raised. Real issues. And I am not proclaiming the perfection of any policy measure. But the simple fact is, whether it is 140, 130, 127, whatever the number that gives you comfort, it is too much. Our debt is too much. We cannot survive with it. If you want to say it's me cause it to get there, or a next man cause it to get there, or whatever, whosever fault it is, does not change the fact that we cannot survive with it at that level. And we have to do something about it. I am not really, I mean, you know, I stand for Parliament and that is something to do. But I am at the stage in life where what I want most of all is for our country to make it. If it means that we can say, if you want me to admit guilt to something, I will, if I know what it is. I'll admit it if I think it's justified, but blaming one way or the other does not solve our problem. We spend too much time as a country focusing on who we want to blame than focusing on how on God's earth we are going to get out of the problem. If we don't get out of the problem, we will continue to be faced. So many families who have brothers and sisters and sons and things who feel hopeless and who feel that their only choice is to leave and go to somewhere else to try and make life. I don't want to see other generations having to do this. I can readily accept all kinds of errors that have been made. But for God's sake, let's try and have an honest discourse about how we get out of this mess.
Thank you. Can we go to this gentleman here?
Dr. Phillips, must say I'm very happy I didn't finish or didn't conclude telling you that story about the wife leaving and the child leaving on account of the economic woes. Anyway, I am Jay from Forbidden Fruit, and I must say how much I enjoyed your contribution without exception. And that part of it that I was particularly enthusiastic about was that aspect on providing more capital for youths. Considering or some recent statistics that I considered as it relates to youth, that how alarmingly high the incidence of unemployment is among us in relation to the national level, almost 3 times as high. Now, the question I would like to ask is this. Has the government considered a strategy in providing capital to those who would like to undertake business in respect of unemployment? That is to say, can the government make it a prerequisite of those applying for loans to do so on the basis of not just to acquire material or to upgrade the business technologically, but on the basis of expanding it in terms of getting more persons employed in the business?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tijani Christian, Youth Ambassador of Jamaica. My question, well, one of, there are 6 of us. My question is, as we know, there are limited resources in Jamaica as it relates to government, and the main income for government is tax. Well, the most secured income is tax. What I want to ask is, how feasible is it to have tax waivers or breaks for company who want to fund youth development work or programs? Because of course you know that when we look at the budget here, for persons who actually read the budget,